Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
Hi, my name is Stalin, Tafura. Welcome to my studio. I grew up in the rural area of Zimbabwe, in the eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, bordering Mozambique. That's where I grew up, so that's where I learned how to sculpt. My first sculpture, I remember it vividly. It was a headman. A headman as in, because I grew up heading goats and cows and sheep. My grandfather had a lot of livestock. So my first sculpture was of a headman. It had a face, of a human face on one side, and then on the back of the same piece was a head of an animal. It could be a goat or a sheep. I learned by observation. My mother was also sculpting, so that's how I learned. From the age of 5, I was observing them. Even earlier, I start from the age 5 because that's where I think you start to see and put things into perspective. But I think you start even earlier because I was born when my grandfather was already sculpting. My mother started sculpting. My aunts and uncles were sculpting. So I think, it started since I was born. The term Shona, or is it the word? Shona, is a name of a tribe in Zimbabwe. So that's where most of the sculptors of this particular stone come from. To say Shona sculptor, you're just saying the same thing as Zimbabwean sculptor, because the Shona people are mostly found in Zimbabwe, and that's where this kind of art form comes from. As a young child, you want to emulate your elders. You admire your elders. So I grew up wanting to emulate what my grandfather, my uncles were doing. But then when you grow as an artist, you want to establish your own style. And so that's what I've tried to do, and I hope I'm on the right track. When I came to the United States in 2004, I came to California. I came to exhibit my sculptures there. And then the exhibition got extended, and I ended up being there for about 4 years. After the exhibit ended, I moved to Colorado. There was a Zimbabwean exhibit in Loveland, Colorado. The curators wanted me to come and work with the exhibit. So I came to work with the exhibit. I ended up working with the the organization for about 7 years. And so that's how I ended up in Longmont. Mostly I use stone from Zimbabwe. Different quarries in Zimbabwe have different types of stones. We get them from the Great Dyke. The Great Dyke is a volcanic stretch that is stretched across Zimbabwe. That's where we get these stones. So if you go to a different spot on the same line, the same Great Dyke, there's different types of rock that you can get. So mostly the rocks are serpentine. These are all serpentine, but because I went to different spots, they have different textures, different hardness. So this stone and this stone are from the same quarry. The only difference is this stone was broken from another stone in the quarry. This was just found as a whole. That's how it has oxidation. The brown is the oxidized part. So you can see I have different types. I have the broken ones and I have the oxidized stones. I love the oxidized because they give a lot of texture when I'm working. They give a lot of character to the stone when it's done. These are mostly the stones I use for students when I have students learning to sculpt for the first time, because it's not as hard as the gray one. I ship them from Zimbabwe, put them in crates and into a container, and it takes about 3 to 8 months. Right now I even have a shipment that's on the way, so hopefully it will be here on time. One quarry has a different type of stone from the next one, so I go to one quarry and select the ones I like, and to the next one until I have a good number. I go sometimes when I'm looking for a particular stone, for a particular sculpture. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes one day. When it takes months, you know, you have to be there. It's either you stay at the quarry or you frequent the quarry until you get it out, you know, because there's guys at the quarry who are digging out these stones. When you're just getting a bunch of raw stone for your studio, usually I just go and pick what's available. The fact that the stone is natural and comes from the ground and it's very important, because I believe that the stone has a spirit. Once you connect with the spirit, I think your relationship with the stone throughout sculpting will be great. I've worked on marble. It's a challenge to work on a stone that you are not used to. I grew up working on this type of stone. When I work on this stone, it's like coming home, especially when you're living far away from home. There's a sense of comfort. I've worked on marble. It's a great, great stone, marble. I just tend to work more on this one because there's a lot of comfort that comes with it. Where I get my inspiration from, it comes in different ways. One is you have an idea and you go hunting for the raw stone that fits your idea. Or you go out looking for stone and then you see an idea in the stone. The stone already has the idea and you just have to help bring it out. I would prefer mostly when I find the idea in the stone, because that would be an amazing thing. You are not forcing the stone, you're just working with the stone. You are agreeing with the stone. Most of sculpting tools I have to ship from Europe. Some of the tools I make for myself. I've made some chisels, some wide chisels. I've improvised on some tools to make them fit what I want to do or what fits my hand. You develop a relationship with tools. The tools become part of you. You pray with them, you meditate with them. When you look at a sculpture and you look at your tools, it gives a certain satisfaction. You begin to admire your tools. You begin to, cherish, the tools that you have, My mother gave me some tools that I still have today, and I hope to pass on to my children. You sit down watching what you have done during the day, and then you look at the tools. Those are the tools that you end up with because they've stayed the time, they've seen a lot, they've seen what my grandfather's done, they've seen what my mother's done, and now they're doing work for me. I grew up sculpting around 10, 15 sculptors in the same studio. Sculpting in the US means you are on your own. You're sculpting on your own in your studio. You're scraping around trying to get connected to something else that is not you. It becomes difficult even physically moving these stones, because it's easier when you're back home. You have a lot of friends. It's easy. You can just pick this up and move it to another spot. But here you have to wait. You have to look for machinery. You have to. So that's the challenge you face when you're sculpting in the U.S. But it has also positives, because you get inspired by a different environment. You get to see things from outside your home, which makes your mind grow. My son has been sculpting with me. I give him the same stone since he was 3. He's been sculpting on the same stone. I think it teaches him something if he gets back to the same stone. He comes here, he sculpts 10, 15, 20 minutes and he's done and he's off to something else. He has a lot of interest in sculpting, and I think it's very important that I pass it to him and my daughter. If he wants to do it, he gets to do it, If he, chooses something else, that's up to him. Selling artwork in the US or in the Western world, it does change what you make as an artist. As an artist coming from Africa, you tend to follow what's on the market. You tend to follow what sells. Do I follow the market or do I follow my true self? It's a very difficult path to walk. I do commissioned works. It's very good when you do commissioned works that are open. By open, I mean commissioned works that are not strict. When somebody commissioning a piece of work and they tell you, I want strictly this and that. I think for me, art does not work that way. Art changes. Even during the process, a piece can change. If it's open, I can make it even better. Or even because the stones come in different shapes. So if you are very strict, you are almost killing the stone. You're killing the spirit of the stone. So if you leave it open, then you leave the stone to also say something. to contribute in what's going to be the result. So if the commissions are open, yes, that's the best. If the commissions are strict, it's a very difficult line to walk. I am in the process of doing a commission right now of a monumental sculpture, which is about 14 foot high. That's the shipment that's on the way. I went to Zimbabwe. I took my son and we were on a mission. I was looking for a particular stone, right, from the quarry. And it took months to take it out because it was so big. And there's no machinery. It's digging manually. So I bought some chain block, but they still wouldn't get it out. And so eventually we got an excavator, and that did the job. We got it out and put it on the truck, and the truck went to the weigh station. It was 16 tons. So 16 tons, we took it to the studio in Harare at my mother's studio and worked on it for a month. I had a couple of collaborators that I was working with. But at the end, I didn't get an opportunity to weigh it. The raw stone was 16 tons. Right now, I don't know how much we took off. I'm guessing it's around 14 tons. That's just my guess. We'll see if I'll get an opportunity to weigh it when it gets here. The ideal process is when I go out and find a raw stone that has something in it. And I just have to help bring that idea out. When you start chipping on the raw stone, you can't see your original idea in the stone anymore because you have chipped on it. What you saw in the raw stone is not there anymore. What I saw in the beginning is not there anymore. I've messed it up. But it's not like messing up, it's part of the process. You step away for a little bit, process what has happened. That's what's called sculpting. You're putting marks on the stone, and then the stone responds with the marks on it. And now it's back to you, because it's a conversation. You're communicating with the stone. So that's the stone responding to you. What are you going to do with it? And it's important not to rush. Take your time. These days, with the capitalism in the world, you want to get it done as soon as possible, and it makes it's not a natural process anymore. It becomes a forced idea onto the stone. That's an ideal world where you're sculpting and you're conversing with the stone and everything is going well. In a natural world, accidents happen. Sometimes when you're sculpting, right in the middle, it breaks. And sometimes it happens when you're almost done. So what are you going to do? These are the things that you have to consider. It's in the process. It's in the process of sculpting. That what are you going to do when something like that happens? It takes experience and character, and for you to go over that. What are you going to do? Are you going to break windows and glasses because the sculpture fell? So those are some of the things that you inherit as a experience and help for you to jump over some of those things. Sometimes I like to work on many pieces at a time. It can be 5 or 11 or whatever number. It depends with what I am feeling at the time or what I'm working towards. So it's easier. It gets easier. Like for example, when I'm working on this and I get stuck, I can't respond to this stone. Maybe I can respond to that one. I will just walk over and start responding to that one. When I'm working, how do I know when the sculpture is done? Sometimes I have to force it from my heart that this is done, because then I'll keep on working and working on it, But sometimes it just tells, the stone says, that's enough, So it varies who says the sculpture is done. Mostly my sculptures are one piece. Sometimes I have different pieces come together, and when I do that, I put holes in the stone and into the other stone, and I put glue into the other, and I put metal, and so it stays together when I put in two different sculptures. But mostly I do one, or just one piece. Yes, recently I've been using a grinder to smooth it out and eventually get it to the texture that I need it to be. Even after grinding it, I still need to make a texture, which I will do manually. Polishing it's a long process after the grinder or fire and rasp, because the grinder, I use an angle grinder. So angle grinder sometimes will not get into some of the hidden spots. So I have to do this with rasps and files, and then use sandpapers. 80 grit to 120, 400, 600, and 1500. Some parts are gonna be black, like the face here, the arm, the baby, they are gonna be black. The fabric is gonna stay like that. So to make it black, I use beeswax. I heat it with a blowtorch, and when it's hot, I apply beeswax. So the beeswax stays, because when I heat it, the stone opens up some pores, so the wax get into some pores and stays into this stone. And then buff it off, then it shines. So this piece, when I polish it, is gonna be the black color. 2 years ago, I started working on this piece. And I'm still working on it, though it's close to completion. I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it will be finished. Because it varies with your inspiration. It also varies with time, the time you have. Back home in Zimbabwe, there's a lot of help. You get a lot of help from family, from friends, so it becomes easier. When it comes to shipping, it's very important to
put it on a boat.
Yes, you put on a boat. Wrap it with bubble wrap first, or newspaper or foam, and then put it in a crate, like you said, wooden crate, so it doesn't move around. So this piece, it's an exciting piece for me, because it involved him. It involved my son. So this was a time when we were getting ready to go to Zimbabwe with him. So I titled this piece, "Carry Me Home," for him to learn more about our culture. So that's when the idea in this stone was solidified. We traveled home safe and he was very excited, and it's surprising how much you think you know about your culture. There's a lot you don't know about your culture. Even, when I was researching for him, turns out for me even I need to learn more about my culture. I only talk to my children in Shona, which is my native language. Hopefully they will keep learning for themselves when they are grown. I think it's important that I give them this gift that I owe them. The elephant is, it's a very emotional story for me. It's a sad story. It's a beautiful animal, but when I sculpted it, it wasn't a good story for me because the title of the piece is called More Than Ivory. So this is a piece about poaching for the horns, where people are coming from all over the world, especially from China and the Western world, and killing this big animal just for the tusk. I found the stone and it fit what I wanted to say. It wasn't much that I had to do except for the texture, and I left some of the natural texture on the stone. It's very important to take care of animals. When I talk about totems, our totems are very important. They are deep. A totem is a name that is given to you, not just you, your family, going back. It's an old technology that is still very relevant today, because you can go right now in Zimbabwe or the countries surrounding Zimbabwe and you will know about your family without going the scientific way of DNA or so it's a very old technology that's still relevant today, that is still cherished today. So totems are given names, and mostly the names are of animals. For example, my totem is hippopotamus. A hippo. I'm a hippo and my children are hippos. If my daughter wants to know the family tree, or she can follow that and go back and back and back. And so some people are named, their totems are elephants, totems birds or crocodile. So animals are very important to us, and it's also becomes very significant when you look at, we don't eat our totems. If my totem is an animal that people eat, like a pig, I will not eat a pig.
Or an eagle.
Or an eagle. I will respect that animal. It's a very important animal. So, but other people who are of other totems can eat it. And there are taboos that will protect that from, happening. There's things like, if you eat your totem, you will lose your teeth. So those taboos are very important. Sometimes you find that it's not true that it will happen, but you respect the taboos. The taboos are like police. In the older times, we didn't have police. In where I come from, we didn't have police. We had things like taboos and things like elders and things who would police the people. Nowadays, is being watered down, which is coming up in a lot of my inspiration in my new pieces that I'm doing these days. I'm inspired by what is important in our culture. What is important that's being watered down by modernity. So this piece, the title is called Encircling My Soul. In this piece I wanted to show how in meditation it goes down deep into just about yourself. I mean, society is meant to be about the community, right? But for you to function well in the community, you have to go through yourself, think about yourself and what's important that you can come with to the society. It's modern and ancient, the idea of meditation. Meditation is being incorporated into modernity because it's very powerful, it's important, it's very old, but it shows up into modernity. You can see I didn't do much on the stone because this is raw. This is, the brown spots are raw. I just did a little bit to show what I wanted to do. You do not have to destroy something, destroy the world to bring up an idea. You know, it's what you can do, the most you can without destroying a lot. So these are the pieces that I started with the intention of casting and molding into bronze. So I carved them in stone. First, each one of them. This is a granite base that I put a pin to hold them. I thought about joy. I mean, when I think about where I grew up and how I grew up, most of the events that I attended, that I was involved in, were accompanied by joy. You know, there was time for happiness and joy and dancing, music. So that's what I tried to put into this piece. And then I cast these pieces, these are the originals in stone. I cast them into bronze. So this is what I did. And then I gave them a lot of color. So as I was saying earlier on, it's only natural that you get inspired by the environment that you are in. And the environment that I am in right now, most of my artist friends, they do bronze. So that's when I was inspired to do some bronze pieces. So I have an idea to have these blown up. It might be in a park or in a sculpture park or somewhere, but I want this joy to be in a somewhere public. After a whole day of work, just sitting there looking at what you have done. Sometimes I sit there for hours and hours and my wife is calling me, "What are you still doing out there?" But it's something that I'm enjoying. Those are some of the rewards. It sounds small, but it's very, very big. Having my son sit beside me and his interest. When you say you're teaching your children, you don't tell them, "Come out, let's go and sculpt." I don't do that. But it has to be something he wants to do. It has something to do with wanting to come. I have his hammer, I have his stone, I have his chisel ready. But he will come when he wants to. it's not like you're forcing. If he doesn't want, fine, he doesn't want to. But when he wants to, it's there for him. And when he comes, those are some of the rewards, like little rewards you look at. And then, you know, there's bigger rewards where you want to have your sculptures shown in big places. You want to travel and teach and things like that. I have 3 galleries at the moment. One is in Palm Desert in California. The other one is in Santa Fe. The other one is in Boulder, Colorado. I do the Loveland sculpture in the park, which is a great, wonderful show. I love that show. I've done a lot of workshops. Students who have never held a hammer and chisel, starting from scratch. And I've worked with them with a stone from Zimbabwe. And when you teach and you have that and you see people, there's a lot of understanding. Some people cannot complete a piece when you try to teach them, but it's what they have taken in their hearts and their minds. You didn't finish a sculpture, but it's a success because of what you have. What you have taken from it, that's the most important thing. Thanks for coming by. I hope you enjoyed my work.